first item, go to, turn your page, turn the page over. There, top one on 20.
Right.
Alright, that's your speakers for the 5. Simon has been replaced by Siddika. If you can read my scroll.
Right, I could do that.
Okay.
And one.
We've got Jackie in as well. Good. And John Keary coming. Ah, wonderful. Thank you.
Basically, I just copied what I did the last time.
Excuse me, going down.
Perfect.
Because you can talk me through the last.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely fine. I'll look at them, and if I see a problem, I'll come back to you. Thank you.
I mean, I literally, because you took me through the last one, I literally did it all.
Thank you.
You're the man, Bob.
All done. I just sorted it out for you.
Got all your bits.
It's okay. But shall I go public now? Or you want me to hold on for just a couple
Oh,
of
wonderful.
minutes?
Thank you, Zoe. Yep, that's
What do I need to do to
All right.
And
well, it is
like a bandu,
just
thank you.
press
It's
done.
much appreciated.
I'll just
What have I done?
Nothing. I think it's room key change. I just copied and pasted it across. Yeah, go on. That might be easier than I thought.
Yeah, so that's on the 27th. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I phoned her this morning.
I'll be able to.
I think she's just there now.
I can do it now. It's 7 o'clock. Right.
1 minute here.
So no one was saying anything, so, but yeah.
I can unmute it. Tell me and I'll unmute
Good evening.
it.
Yeah,
Oh, hang on.
yeah,
Oh, wait.
I'm afraid all 5 slots have been filled.
Yeah, no,
Oh my god, it's just like the old days. Feel for this time.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Just check it, yeah. Just go and tell me what's going on. Because at the moment,
We're
it's held on
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. That's how many taxes need to be.
So like St Edmunds is all before.
Oh, they're already there anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that. Yeah, right. So we are.
So
Oh, yeah,
okay.
that's good.
Make it about 2 minutes too. Do 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Or even where it just says 1.
No, on the other.
Oh, not these. Yeah.
Sense of apologies, I think. Yeah. I thought you'd send them.
Prime Minister emergency.
Logged on since about 3 o'clock.
Gone?
Logged on since about 3
It'll
o'clock.
be after that, yes. It's got family business.
Now, on the list, like on the phone.
Not well, Mike.
No, it's got family business.
I've got it.
And you are complete, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight is the first meeting of the council after the election. And I've just got a little bit of housekeeping to do. If you wish to have a comfort break during this evening's meeting, you can do so if you go out of the door you came in and you turn to your right, and immediately on your left you'll find everything you need, hopefully. And should that be occupied, there are toilets downstairs. Just follow the stairs that you came down. There is no fire alarm tonight, no fire drill, should I say. So if we hear an alarm, it really is happening. The fire escapes are through the stairs that you came up, go down those and go out at the front door. If that is in any way blocked, please use the stairs this side of this wall. It will go down to stairs. There's an emergency exit which takes you out into near St Dunstan's house. And should both those ways be blocked, please don't use the lift. We'll have to sit it out. So that's the housekeeping. We have public participation tonight, And the first person to speak is Lou, who's going to speak about travellers. Please, could you try and keep your comments to 3 minutes? We do have some handy 3-minute timers. If you'd like to come to the table and address the council, and Lou, over to you, travellers.
Hi, thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm just going to ask you some questions that I would like answered if possible. I don't know if it's best for me to read all the questions out first and then be addressed one at a time, or... So, my main concern for being here is the PSPO, the Public Space Protection Order, that we're waiting to have a decision about whether it's going to be implemented. And so, my first question is about...
Sorry, I think you might have turned it off accidentally.
Okay. My first question tonight is about all my questions are about the Public Space Protection Order. And because obviously we're just waiting to find out when it's going to be enacted. So the first question is, when will the PSPO be discussed by Mendip Council? We've been told that Mendip Council will be making the final decision on the PSPO, and we were told that by Liam Bond at Mendip Council. My second question is, what position will Glastonbury councillors be taking in relationship to this order? And my third question is that, as a group, we would like the opportunity to provide the council with information, including alternatives to the PSPO and also possible consequences of the PSPO if this order is enacted. And so we would like some timescale and a meeting so that we can talk to councillors, so that you are prepared when you meet with Mendip and Somerset. And then also my final question is, will the council support the formation of a steering group to include travellers and van dwellers to discuss issues that are relevant to our communities? So, I don't know.
Well, thank you, Lou. We don't normally respond to public participation, but I can ask the clerk if you know the answer to the first question, as I'm not sure any of us know that at the moment.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not familiar with the timeline on the PSPO from Mendip District Council. I can only believe they're going to try and wrap it up before there's the change to full unitary, so I would expect some action within the next year.
And if the clerk, have you made a note of those other questions? Would it be all right for the council to take some time to consider your questions and respond to you? We could invite you back, perhaps, to respond to you. Is that okay? Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Lou. Thank you. So next we have Emma King on how the Town Council communicates with the public. Emma.
Councillors. Okay, well, I'd like what I say to be minuted, please, because what I'm actually going to put forward here is some recommendations to the new council for both the previous and new councillors, because obviously I've given quite a lot of thought to how the council operates, as I was obviously hoping to have been elected onto it, and I didn't come to the table, obviously, with no ideas. So my first recommendation is that all councillors receive equalities training, because councillors need to serve the whole community, and you need to bear in mind that only 40% of the town turned out to vote, so you don't actually have much of a mandate. So it's obviously really important that you try to represent the community as best you can. It's really important, I think, to have a clear knowledge of the implications of the Equalities Act 2010 and to know what the 9 protected characteristics are. And this would enable the councillors to better serve the needs of the diverse community of Glastonbury. And I believe this is especially important after the transphobia which was posted publicly on Facebook by Councillor Mitchell when she was mayor in April 2020. At that time, it was left on her page. Nobody on the council at the time stood up for trans people. Lots of trans people were posting on there who were very very upset. And I also know that one of the newly elected councillors publicly agreed with her. One of my trans friends who lives in St John's Ward received "Die Tranny Die" graffitied on her door a few years ago. So trans people need the reassurance that the town council are helping to create a safe environment for them, as do all minority groups in town, which is why I believe equalities training is vital. Similarly, and this suggestion came from somebody I spoke to whilst I was out canvassing, is that non-violent communication workshops would be a good idea, and there is someone in Butley apparently who runs these. And these would help councillors to better listen to townsfolk, as well as enabling better conversations to be had, where people are properly heard and feel included in decisions that are made for the town. Another important issue with the way the council communicates is the ward Facebook groups. These are a really poor example of communication between the town council and the people of the town. The purpose of these groups is not met, as councillors do not report what they are doing apart from occasional events, and they don't get involved in discussions, and this is what it actually says on the groups that they are for. There are no rules at all in St John's Ward group, and the groups that do have rules, they're frequently not followed properly. A friend of mine left a group about a year or two ago because she felt it was unsafe. There's frequent unchecked xenophobia. For example, and this isn't xenophobia by the way, Gabriel Avalon uses the pages to promote his own business all the time, and this is in violation of Rule 3. And he's actually an admin on St Ben's Ward, although I've got absolutely no idea why. There should really be at least 3 admins on each ward in order for consensus to be reached on decisions, but St John's and St Mary's only have 2. When I contacted admins in St Ben's group once a year or so ago about an issue, Hazel Pegg didn't even know she was an admin on it. I also found a post from 14th of November 2021, this is on St Ben's again, about some ewes that had been killed by a dog. 24 weeks ago, one person requested that this post was deleted as the issue has been dealt with, and yet it's still there. If people want to rant and rave, there's a group for that, and the ward groups are not the place for it. If these groups are not properly managed, then they should not exist, as they paint the town council in a bad light. I'm actually happy to offer services as admin on these groups to ensure they're properly moderated. People should have to answer questions before joining the groups, as people are on there who don't even live in the area, and I'm not sure why they should even be there, because it's about town council issues. There should also be keywords set up as notifications for admins to deal with, so that if somebody mentions a particular thing, like asking an admin something, it would immediately be flagged up and it would be seen straight away. So my last point is, if anyone would like to set up a meeting, then I'm quite happy to have a conversation about what could be done, because I do admin several groups. When I was previously in the Labour Party, I admined the Well CLP group during the first lockdown, and I can reassure you that that was not at all easy. So I do have quite a lot of experience in dealing with this sort of thing. My last point is completely separate, and this is about the St Andrews Ward campaign, which I know that the previous town council agreed to support. The closure of St Andrews Ward in Wells, the last remaining mental health ward in Mendip, has been put back by another year, which is great news. All I wanted to do really was to leave some leaflets about it in case some councillors who are new don't know about the campaign, and also to leave a QR code if anyone hasn't signed the petition, if you'd like to scan that. We've got over 4,000 signatures now, so obviously we're trying to push for 5,000, and the county council will have to debate it. Another bit of good news is that David Huxtable lost his seat, and he was extremely unhelpful about this, so hopefully the new head of adult health and social care will actually genuinely care, which would be really helpful. But anyway, thank you very much for letting me speak, and I'll just leave these here if anyone would like to get more information. Then Safe Somerset's Community Services is the place to go on Facebook. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Emma. Just very quickly, the ward pages that you mentioned were set up by councillors before the town council had its own Facebook presence, and I think that the idea of them is probably run its course. And in answer to your question, Gabriel Avalon is an admin because he can't be removed as one. So,
yeah, this is what I thought. I mean, this is the thing, if you're going to have people on there, they need to be on there as admins, and the agreement that once they're not town councillors, they're going to step down, otherwise you shouldn't really put them on as admins, but I know that these things are easy to say in hindsight.
Yeah, so I think we will take note of what you said. Thank you very much. So next on the list, we have Sandra Wicks, Telecom and Surveillance in Glastonbury. Hello, Sandra.
Thank you very much. Glastonbury Safe Tech held a very successful evening event at the Town Hall on the 4th of May called EMF Radiation and Your Health, highlighting the problems of high levels of EMF radiation in town, the effect on health and how we can reduce exposure and protect ourselves. Included in the presentation was recent meter readings around town which were worryingly high. My colleague will present in more detail, Sidika. In March, a telecoms engineer was spotted installing equipment under the pavement in front of the nationwide cash point next to the Georgian Pilgrim. When a resident approached him to ask if it related to 5G, he said yes. The same resident also mentioned that new equipment had been installed on the lamppost in Tor Avenue. When he asked the engineer if it was 5G, he was cagey about answering, and our campaign has heard of other reports of equipment in the Wells Road, on the Wells Road. As you probably know, the planning application by 3UK for the upgrade to 5G on the mast in Park Farm Road in the Beckery was withdrawn in April with no reason given. Today we heard that there's a new mast application in Frome at the same site where the 5G upgrade was refused on health grounds at the Mendip Planning Board meeting on the 16th of March. We are also concerned that as planning for masts has been deregulated from 4th of April, telecom operators may try to upgrade existing masts without the need for any planning approval. New mast sites will still need planning approval. Last week, 3UK were upgrading their equipment in St John's Church Tower. They say they were replacing 3G with more 3G, using higher frequencies. It is possible they were just replacing the Chinese Huawei equipment, which the government has said it needs to be removed because of security concerns. However, a campaigner took details of 2 identical Ericsson masts, which the installers were about to take into the church, and was able to ascertain the frequency ranges from the Ericsson products catalogue. We sought an expert opinion. The feedback was mixed, saying the antennae could be used as a 5G network at sub-gigahertz frequencies, but the higher 5G frequencies wouldn't be able to penetrate the tower walls. One source said it was consistent with 3 or 4G technology. However, we are still concerned that the new equipment may increase the already high levels of radiation on the High Street and St John's Infant and Nursery Schools, only 50 metres from the church tower. Colleagues met with the vicar today and will be in ongoing dialogue as the telecoms contract in the church tower is up for renewal later this year. He doesn't know, but we may have asked him to find out and let us know. The vicar said the church council do not want 5G in the tower and appreciate the town council's stance on the precautionary principle. We have also had a lot of disruption in the town with TrueSpeed digging up the roads to install super-fast broadband cables, and there is concern that this infrastructure may also facilitate the introduction of 5G technology, either now or at a later date. We would ask that the new town council creates a new advisory or watchdog committee in relation to all telecommunications equipment and infrastructure, existing or planned in Glastonbury town. This might have a councillor from each ward who would advise of any new development plans, that there would be active engagement with Mendip District Council and later Somerset County Council to provide information in a transparent way to residents, probably via the Glastonbury Safe Tech campaign, who would also form as part of the new committee. This committee would also follow up the recommendations of the original 5G Advisory Committee, which were to an extent neglected, probably and understandably due to the lockdown. It has also come to our campaign's attention that Mendip are wanting Glastonbury Town Council to sign a contract to put a camera on top of the town hall, which would collect data such as addresses from mobile phones of passers-by, and that other cameras around town are also planned. We suspect that these cameras would probably be 5G connected and similar to an ANPR surveillance system. We imagine that a large proportion of Glastonbury residents would be incensed at the idea of these surveillance cameras. Much better to protest them and stop this proposal before they are put up, rather than ask people to turn their phones off around them, which has been suggested. It is only the camera on the town hall that the council would need to sign a legal contract for. Or would the council also need to approve other cameras in the town? Do you know the proposed location of the other cameras and their specification? Do you know if the cameras would need to go through Mendip Planning Department with a public consultation? We would appreciate you giving us full disclosure on this matter so that we can inform Glastonbury residents. I must remind councillors, parish councillors and Mendip District Council that they have an obligation to safeguard the health and privacy of the people of this town. Our Glastonbury Safe Tech campaign would like to support the council, the church and businesses, including the new initiatives of Glastonbury Town Deal, to keep our town safe from high levels of electromagnetic radiation and to inform people of how to best protect themselves. We would like the council's support on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you be happy to leave your papers for us with the questions?
Of course, yes.
Thank you very much. So next we have Sadiqa Peterson, and radiation and installations in Glastonbury.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. So, as my colleague mentioned, we had a presentation last week, public event, and during that presentation, somebody presented the meter readings that have recently taken place in Glastonbury. We recorded the event, and I actually put the video up on our new YouTube channel last night, but already today it's been taken down again. So this is obviously very dangerous data to be banding around. We had a meeting, I'll go through them in a moment. We had a meeting today with a vicar at St John's and a member of his parochial church council to express our concerns about the installations and the need for transparency and communication so that they can make an informed decision when they decide whether or not to renew the contract for the mast in the church at the end of the year. And they did actually offer us the opportunity to give a presentation to the Church Council on the meter readings and the effects of high levels of EMFs. They were very interested in the readings and also suggested that we do take more and that they would be keen to see what happens, particularly after this new installation at the church. So I'm going to just do a very brief kind of overview. So this chart here is just a simplification of the levels at which harm is felt. So these readings are in volts per meter, and we're seeing that at the very low levels, at 0.02, that most people are okay. It's a kind of healthy environment. And then if you go above 0.02, you get into an area where people who are electrosensitive may start to exhibit symptoms. And these levels here, these are actually evidential levels between 0.2 and 0.2 volts per meter is where people actually start feeling the effects of radiation, electromagnetic radiation. And then you see as you go higher, above 0.3, this is too high for people with electrosensitivity. And they experience this in terms of pain, dizziness, confusion, and more serious health effects as well. And anything above 3 is actually too high for ambient levels, which effectively means that's too high to support life for general people. And so here we have some meter readings, which one of my colleagues has taken with an acoustimeter, a reliable meter. And we've got it on 2 dates here, the 25th of February and also on the 2nd of May. And here we see that outside St John's Gates, on the 25th of February, it was 0.83 volts per meter. So that is, if you can compare it to here, you're getting to the level of nearly 1, too high for people with electrosensitivity. And then a couple of months later, it's actually at 1.7, which is definitely too high. Then outside Nature Preserved on the High Street, it's a massive 3.42, which is definitely in the dangerous area. And again, later it was even higher. And my colleague who was taking the meter readings was pointing out that even just moving a short distance along the high street, it can really, the meter readings can vary dramatically. And here we see at St John's Infant School, my colleague took the readings at the fence. The later reading is 1.29. So this is too high for people with ES. And just to point out that children are particularly vulnerable and are much more sensitive to electromagnetic radiation because of their thinner skulls, their developing brains, their proportionally smaller skulls. The amount of their brain that's heated up through radiation is much more. And of course, they're exposed at a much earlier age, so the cumulative effect is much more worrying than it is for adults. And he also took some readings in Benedict Street. At the Scout Hut, it was 4, which is massive, and that was approaching the existing mast at Park Farm Road, which is probably 4G LTE. And then also at Bridie's Yard, 3.57. At Park Farm mast itself was 4.77, so incredibly high readings. And he's compared this to various levels which are thought by independent scientists to be safe. And they are very low, like 0.02. Other researchers said 0.06, but you can see that these are massively orders of magnitude higher than these safe levels. And then just for interest, the International Commission of Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, they set their levels at a whopping 61 volts per meter, which is, you're never going to reach that. So that's why they say, oh, it's okay, this mast is only at 10% of the levels. And then my colleague, he also took some readings on High Street. Could you hold that a little bit higher? Yeah. And
just to let you know that you've gone well over the 3 minutes, yeah. So I don't know if you're happy to try and wrap it up.
Thank you, yes. And Wells High Street, which are very low, so it's quite an anomaly why the levels in Glastonbury are so high. So we're going to sort of continue taking readings, and we will keep you updated on these. But we are very concerned about this, and there's, as you probably know, there's no insurance to protect against liability for claims, to the council or to those responsible. Lloyd's of London and Swiss Re do not insure against EMF damage. So anyway, but the main thing is we're just very concerned about the levels in the town. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, we have John Keary, Housing Provision. John.
Your Worship, it makes a bit of a difference being at this end of the table than in previous years. But just to say congratulations to all of you who've been elected, those who elected for a second time, and those new, and I hope that the new councillors will come with new ideas to help to invigorate the town. I'm sure you've had induction, but I'm not sure what your induction has covered, and what I want to bring back to the table is a strategy that this town council has had for many years to try and develop land for the benefit of the town. In 1995, we bought a piece of land down on Comnor Drove, and the idea was that we would move the current allotments that are lower side lane down to there to clear a site for council housing, but in effect would be council housing. i.e. the land is owned by the town council, so you have no cost of land in developing the houses. The town council would keep control of the land and would have income from rent into the town council once the houses were built and let. The town council would have nominating rights for those houses, and one of the things that Glastonbury needs is affordable housing. We can't go on complaining about the government policy or about unaffordable housing if we are sitting on land ourselves that we could develop for council housing in the old sense. In the local paper this week, there was an article about how Michael Eavis, recently made a freeman of the town, has developed land up in Pilton in a number of cases. And I'm sure that with advice from his advisors, we could develop the land that we have in a way that would be dealing with affordable housing. The land that we bought on Common Drove won't actually meet all the needs of allotments, but there are other plots around the town that could be developed for allotments to compensate for moving those. I know there's an emotional thing for people with allotments. They may have worked for many years to develop that, but their land could be moved to the new allotment site as possible. And you have to remember that the health centre in the town was built on council allotments. So you can see how the strategy works and how important it has been to the town to have the new health centre there, close into the town, and how allotments were moved from there to Common Drove. So I want to bring to your attention that this strategy exists. It's not something that's been thought of. It's not something that's trying to deny people something. But if people have allotments or have gardens of their own, then in a sense, you're sort of blocking off. It's like second houses. You're blocking off the opportunity for people to get houses that could be relatively easily developed on the site we own. The council's finances are in a pretty strong position. We can borrow money from the Public Works Board at favourable rates that would enable this project to go ahead. And basically, I'm asking councillors to remember that this is in the background all the time. Town deal is there. There are lots of things going on, some very tiny, some larger than others, that carry over to the new council. But this is one that I think we seriously need to work on and to try and develop proper housing for people. We have a van problem. I'm not saying all the van people want houses, they don't, I'm sure. But there may be some that do, or there may be people who are being put out of existing housing for Airbnbs or whatever that we need to be able to accommodate in this sort of development. So I'm just asking you to remember that and hopefully see how you could develop it properly for the people of this town. I think that would be one of the best things that this council could do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. So that completes the public participation. Thank you very much for coming to talk with us. I'm now moving toward the agenda, but before we start, we have a tradition here of lighting the Glastonbury Unity Candle to show that this council is indeed representing the whole community. We are united through our diversity, and I wonder, Lou, whether you would be happy to light the candle for us, and at that point we will stand to observe the silent minute, at which point, if you wish to pray, you may. Thank you. We'll begin. So tonight's meeting is the first following an election, and the first agenda item is to elect the town mayor for the ensuing year. This is the last day of my term as Mayor of Glastonbury, the third time that I've had the huge honour of doing this, and it has been an honour and a privilege to serve this special place and the community over these last 2 extraordinary years. And although we've been through a very tough time with the challenges of COVID and the lockdown, and now, of course, we're going into a growing economic crisis, I feel it's a credit to the community here, to Glastonbury, that we have, on the whole, remained a resilient, a tolerant, and a supportive community. I reflect that the election of a new council with 3 of our most experienced councillors standing down, one of which talked to us earlier on, comes at a time when continuity and capability are most needed. Our 23.6 million town deal is at a crucial and critical stage with the development of our strategic, economic, commercial, financial and management business cases in all 12 projects. Our neighbourhood plan is in its final review, and this new council faces the task of progressing with £2.5 million worth of projects, including the St Dunstan's House Community Health and Wellbeing Centre and the potential of the transport and travel project within the town deal. But looking around the table, I'm delighted to see all of us here. I know that this council will work together for the common good of all, and may Glastonbury flourish. So I would also, at this point, like to thank Serena here, who is busy conversing with Connor, and Sue Barnett for all their help and support. 2 of the most tremendous people I've ever had the good fortune to know, and who've both been superb in the role of Deputy Mayor. I would also like to thank Gerard Tucker, who is quite literally our amazing town clerk. And Gerard already was fantastic, but he rose to the occasion above and beyond during the lockdown and worked incredibly hard through that very difficult time. It has been a huge honour to work with you, Gerard. Thank you so much. From the neighbourhood plan and those early days to the town deal. And some of you know Gerard is retiring from the role of clerk this year. And so I would just like to give you a little something to show my appreciation. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Gerard. So we move now to the point of electing the town mayor for the ensuing year. Are there any nominations? Steve.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to nominate Mike Smythe.
Thank you. Mike, are you happy to be nominated?
I think there's another nomination. I'm happy to be nominated, but I think there's another one perhaps.
Oh, I see. But you're happy to be nominated. Is there a seconder for Mike Smythe?
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
Your Worship, I'd like to nominate Councillor Cousins, yourself, as to continue as mayor. I'm aware the tradition is that people are mayor for 1 year and then hand over to another colleague. But my feeling is we're at a time when a lot of things are in change, and to maximise continuity of experience is what we need at the moment. And I think you represent the most experience that we have on the council at the moment. So I nominate you.
Well, thank you. I'd be happy to accept that nomination if somebody's happy to second it. Oh. So I think, Indra, you were the first person to do that. Are there any other nominations? So I would like to ask the clerk if we could do this through a ballot, if that's possible. Sorry, Steve.
Can I just... Sorry. Oh, you can beat me to it.
I'm favourite.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thanks for the compliment.
Oh, okay. So there is one nomination, which is me. So all those in favour of the nomination? All those against the nomination? And all those abstaining from voting? New councillors, you abstain. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to congratulate myself. Well, I don't know what to say now, but thank you very much. I am completely aware of how critical this year is to the council, coming out of lockdown with all of the amazing projects we have. So I'm very touched by your faith in me. Thank you very much, councillors. I will, of course, honour the role as I have done in previous times. I think that we can forego the approximately 10 minutes of the mayor leaving and coming back in. Is that okay, Clark? Thank you. So I now have to sign the Mayor's Declaration of Acceptance of Office, but I will spare you the acceptance speech. So I, Jonathan Francis Cousins, having been elected to the office of Mayor of Glastonbury Town Council, hereby declare that I take the office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it and serve Glastonbury according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the Code of Conduct which is expected of members of Glastonbury Town Council. Thank you. So, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Your Worship, we have 3 apologies for this evening. Councillor Lindsay McDougall, who is attending some family matters, Councillor Napper, who unfortunately has a clash of meetings because this meeting moved by a week, and Councillor Cottle, who is having to escort his stepfather to hospital.
Thank you. I'm sure we'd all come together to wish his stepfather well, Councillor Cottle's stepfather. So now we have declarations of interest. So, councillors, you've all signed your interest forms, I'm sure. This relates to this meeting particularly, and whether or not you have interest related to any of the items on the agenda. I myself am currently a director of the Glastonbury Information Centre, CIC. Are there any other declarations? So, councillors, we now move on to elect the Deputy Mayor for the ensuing year. Do we have any nominations? Serena.
I'd like to nominate Indra as Deputy Mayor.
Indra, are you happy to be nominated?
Yes, thank you.
Is there a seconder for that nomination? So, Councillor Henderson, I think, beat everybody to it.
Sorry, I was going to nominate somebody else. I beg your pardon.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Councillor Smythe is seconding.
I'd like to second it.
So, Councillor Henderson, you have a nomination.
Well, thank you. Because of Mike Smythe has just seconded Indra, I kind of withdraw my potential nomination.
Thank you. Thank you. I can only guess at who you might have been thinking of. Are there any other nominations for the role of Deputy Mayor? So can I have a show of hands of all those in favour of Indra Don Francesco? And all those against? And any abstentions? So, councillors, it's normal form to raise your hand if you're abstaining. Thank you.
Beg your pardon.
So I think that's 10 for with 3 abstentions. Congratulations, Indra. So there will now be a short recess of approximately 5 minutes while the Civic Party adjourn to the Mayor's Parlour for the Deputy Mayor to accept regalia. Thank you. Please do talk amongst yourselves.
Just do your bit, Andy? I just need one Gerard, yeah, when he comes back, I'll tell you. Get you in there next year, Mike. I'll get you. Well, that's very kind.
Double act, Steve, 1 year.
Stoppable, isn't it?
Yeah. Just like you can.
That's true, mate. It's brilliant.
Steve, yeah, very well, thank you. Councillors, just while the Civic Party hasn't appeared, I've noticed a few times, not necessarily this evening, but sometimes it can be a bit difficult to work out what's going on with the microphones. So that button there is actually the mute button. So if you accidentally hit that, it will flash red. To turn that off, you just hit that button again. Then it should start picking you up, and when it's picking you up, it will flash green. So if any of you have any issues, that tends to be what it is.
Thanks, Connor.
What's going on for the last 3 years?
Conrad, would you be able to deal with the Facebook queries?
Yes, I noted them down to design the 9 courses on those wall pages. So both Sarah and I to the back of the room.
Fantastic. I thought you were going to
It's a good show having John again. Like a bandio. Yeah, you know. That's kind of understated, but he is
What I can do, I can put on the June. So I'll put it on the June agenda.
That's very true, yeah, absolutely.
It might well look like
But it needs to be regulated.
need to make sure.
I think.
I'll put it on the June agenda.
John and I was elected, whatever it was, 11 years ago. The council was kind of in June. There's dues, pads and things like that. I think the council has changed quite a lot in those years. And yeah, like I said, the mayor is more of a sort of executive, right? And stuff that's going on, it makes sense to have.
Your technical expertise extends to
Yeah, quite good.
Yes, it normally does. If you just forgive me, I just need to go and take a picture and then come back to you.
That's Connor, isn't it? But I got great help from Jay Pritchard, who's Jay Pritchard employed from time to time by the council, is an IT expert.
Yeah, well, it does our web-based.
Yeah.
He's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I wonder if anything else will be rearing its head, but potentially a lot more easy.
I also think it's nice to share out.
Nita, I'll tell you what, it'd be useful for all councillors. Talking about Jay Pritchard.
Yeah.
Very good on IT.
Oh yeah, didn't he run the town council one for a while?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he knocked me out last week because I came in here half an hour later. I've got webmail on my iPhone and on my tablet, and he showed me a few other things. And I said I could do with another half an hour, another time. He suggested there may be other councillors have a half an hour or an hour session with him.
Good idea. Mendip did some sort of like online training a while back, just to get some of the councillors up to speed with some of their things, but it's a really good idea.
Yeah, it's a shortcuts to be made up.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, it's always, you can kind of muddle through yourself to a certain extent, but if you've got somebody that knows what they're doing just to show you that you're the quickest way, it can save you a lot of time.
That's it. And good advice like making new trails rather than adding on to old trails all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a good idea.
We've got a bit of privacy. It might not be appropriate that we're sharing a whole conversation with them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
It'll be a wonderful advantage to me. I get somewhere sometimes, I do something, I don't know how I did it. You can never do it again.
Well, that's it, that's just like guesswork, isn't it?
Absolutely. Those people pop up on it you didn't want to talk to. Or even avoid something else. It's the wrong button.
You sort of saying all this stuff.
Sweep. Oh, see, I thought you had a sweep.
Going up and I wanted to go to that EMF meeting, but we had
Looking at this 11
like last week
on the gym.
It was, yeah. I mean, I never before I never even knew what the council did. I'd never been to a meeting. I didn't even know who was on the council.
It's in your file.
Councillor.
It's in that file, yeah.
Looking for sort of I guess. Just come and give it a go. Sorry, next. Got me introduced, so
Somebody like you.
and he said, surely you can give up one night a month for your town. And I thought, well, yeah, that's actually fair enough.
I think
it's to his teeth.
to have like sort of living.
But you come in, you say,
like not
sure as you want, and but it has been fascinating, I must admit. And there's obviously from not knowing anything about the town council, learning what they do is amazing.
How much time would you say?
You just need to practice. Locally first.
Well, she goes out about a lot together, but this is the first time she's gone off on her own in the car.
And then sort of heard. So what the lady said about
I'm at home, your agenda.
I'd already picked that up.
Planning committee.
And they said, right, so you don't need
and then going to breaks.
And so they sort of sneaked it into the
planning committee. Because I was on the platform. Hang on. To be continued.
Take a picture. You can. No, just
get somebody.
Didn't know I came picture.
Right.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, please be seated. So next we have item 6. Oh yes, sorry, yes, the next on the table, please. Thank you. So now the mace have been placed on the table, we move to item 6, which is to appoint the sergeants at mace, the mace bearers. Do we have any nominations?
Unreceived.
So are our 2 current mace bearers happy to continue in the role for another year? Yes, you are. Thank you very much. I now appoint you sergeants at mace. And to appoint the Mayor's Chaplain, well, the Mayor's Chaplain is currently David McGeoch, who is the Vicar of St John's, as I'm sure you all know, and I would be very honoured and pleased if David would continue in that role. Now we appoint to the standing committees for the ensuing year, and there is a list enclosed, councillors.
I want to point out there is no listing plan.
I see. So we have the list for the outside bodies. The other one is in our folders. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillors, if you go to your folders, you'll find, if you have them with you.
I can relay them to it.
Okay.
You take mine, John. Take lead off that.
So, councillors, so these are the standing committees of Glastonbury Town Council. So the first committee on the list I have is Finance and General Purposes. So any councillors who would wish to be part of that committee, please raise your hands now, and the clerk will say your names, or I will say your names, and then the clerk will say.
You can read them out, please.
Thank you. So we'll start. We're here, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Lokobandu, Councillor Osborne, Councillor Oden, of course, Councillor Cook, Councillor Manning, Councillor White, Councillor Serena Roney-Dougal, Councillor Price, Councillor Smythe, and Councillor Much. I think that's the whole council. Apart from the ones who aren't here, I'm sure they would like to be part of that. Thank you. Councillors, the next one is Property and Assets. Please raise your hands if you'd like to be on that committee. It looks like all the councillors present, Gerard.
And I can inform that Councillor Napper also asked to be on that.
Thank you. So the next is Planning. Councillors, please raise your hand if you'd like to be on the Planning Committee. So that is Councillor Henderson, Councillor Lokobandu, Councillor Cook, Councillor Manning, Councillor Roney-Dougal, Councillor White, Councillor Price, Councillor Smythe, Councillor Much, and the Deputy Mayor. So we now come to staffing. There are 5 councillors on staffing, and it is currently the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and the immediate past Mayor and 2 others. Well, there is no immediate past Mayor, so it will be 3 others to go on staffing committee this year.
Nomination. Somebody submitted a request, so you may want to read that one.
Thank you. So Margaret has submitted a request. Margaret, do you have a copy of this?
Yes.
Would you be happy to read that to your fellow councillors?
Well, I've got it with me, but if you pass that
Yes,
to me, I'm happy to.
And councillor, if you'd be happy to stand.
Right, I'd like to be considered for the role within Glastonbury Council Staffing Committee. I've had over 20 years' experience as a manager working with all staff across all cultures. As Retail Operations Manager for Next, I was responsible for the welfare, training and employment of all staff within the organisation. That was over 460 stores across the country. I have a good knowledge of employment law. I have worked closely with public service unions, representing staff at tribunals. I've also given evidence in court on behalf of both employers and members of staff. Courses I have undertaken are employment law, diversity and culture within organisations, the Mental Health Capacity Act and the Disability Act. I believe I have the experience which would be advantageous to Glastonbury Town Council, and I would like my application to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other nominations? Anybody else would like to stand, sorry, should I say, for staffing? We need 2 other members of the council. So, Councillor Henderson, would you like to just explain your credentials to us, please?
Certainly. I've got my own business in Glastonbury. I've been self-employed since 1985. Over that time, I've probably employed upwards of 40 people. I've never worked in a big concern, but dealing with staff on a daily basis, one-to-one, knowing them, their families, where they live, their personal situations, stands you in great stead. So, I mean, if there's room for me on that staffing committee, I'd be quite happy to fill the place.
Thank you. Councillor Smythe, would you like to be considered? Would you like to explain your credentials to your fellows?
Yeah, I've stood on the staffing committee before, and I've also served in the civil service department employment for 7 years in a managerial role, and from a very young age I had responsibilities of staff and understand all the principles of management, training and employment, associated with the Employment Act as well. I'd happily serve on the staffing committee unless anybody else is more suited.
Thank you. Are there any other people who'd like to come forward for staffing? So I think, councillors, by default, the 3 of you are now members of the staffing committee. Congratulations, and it's a pleasure to have you on board. So we move forward to youth provision. Can I have a show of hands, please, of all those who would like to be on youth provision? So that is Councillor Henderson, Councillor Lokobandu, Councillor White, Councillor Price, Councillor Smythe, Councillor Much, the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor. Glastonbury in Bloom. Councillors who would like to be on Glastonbury in Bloom, please raise your hands. It's Councillor Oakden, Councillor White, Councillor Smythe, Councillor Much and the Deputy Mayor. And finally, the Frostfair Committee. All those councillors who wish to be involved in that, please raise your hands. So that's Councillor Henderson, Councillor Lokobandu, Councillor Oakden, Councillor Ronnie Dougal, Councillor White, Councillor Price, Councillor Smythe, Councillor Much, the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor. It would be quicker to have a show of hands of those who don't want to be. Thank you. Those are the standing committees of the council. The dates of some of those committees you'll have in your folders. The clerk, I'm sure, will let us know in due course.
There's a paper there, Your Worship. Thank you.
Sorry, Jared, where's the...
Deeper down keep going.
Oh, I see. So, yes, your calendar of meetings is actually here, but does that include some of the other meetings there? I don't see property and assets on this list.
Your Worship, it's the full council meetings, planning, the finance and general purposes, and a few key dates of significance to the town.
Thank you. So I'm sure the clerk will let us know in due course the other meetings, and the first item on each of them. Oh, Councillor Ronnie.
Yes, I seem to remember last year at this initial meeting, we also appointed people to the climate emergency group, because although it's an advisory committee, it is one that we councillors voted on whether they wanted to put their hands up or whether they wanted to. It's the same as Glastonbury, isn't it?
Yes, it is on the list in the committee structure, but it wasn't on the list that I was looking at there. I do apologise. Yes, so the Climate and Ecological Emergency Advisory Committee. Councillors, if you would like to be on that, please raise your hands. So that's all the councillors except Councillor Manning, Councillor Cook and Councillor Oakden. So I think, oh, yes, that's right. Was the easier way around?
I didn't put my hand.
Oh, and Councillor Henderson. Thank you. So thank you for that, Serena. Next we have appointment of representatives to outside bodies. This paper is in your table papers tonight. Councillors, if you would like any information about each of these bodies as we go through, please do say points of clarity and we can take that forward. I would actually ask the clerk if you'd be happy to just say a few words about the Austin Memorial Homes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Austin Memorial Homes is properties which are over opposite here at Town Hall and are let to, I believe, women of the parish, and it is very much at a reduced rent and supporting those in need. But of course, properties do need maintaining, and the incomes need to be secured. So they meet about 4 times a year, from my memory. I'll stand corrected. And the Town Council has taken the initiative in leading that work in the past. We're supported by others outside the Council.
Just for clarity, can I ask if any of the if any of the current councillors were existing members of the Austin Memorial Homes Committee? Or representatives of the outside body? No, so we need 4 councillors who would be happy to go forward to that. Do I have any? So Councillor Price, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Smythe, and Councillor White. Thank you. So we have next on the list is Glastonbury Tribunal Limited, and I'm currently the representative of the tribunal, which is in an interesting place in its history, as it is now part and parcel of the group that are in Glastonbury Information Centre. Gerard, do we know the current state of the Tribunal Limited?
The Tribunal Limited is still operating at this time. Whether this is the year that it will cease to operate is yet to be fully determined.
So, councillors, I'm happy if anybody else wishes to take on that role, but I'm also happy to continue in that role if you see so fit. Would anybody else wish to be the representative of the Glastonbury Tribunal Limited? Serena.
I'd just like to ask a question, because the Antiquarian Society have taken over the tribunal as a museum, but you're talking about something different, are you?
So Glastonbury Tribunal Limited is actually what we would call the Tourist Information Centre, and it's the group that operated out of the tribunal but no longer does. So, thank you. So Glastonbury and Sharpham Burial Board. Gerard, would you like to say a few words to this?
Again, a similar committee to the Austin Memorial Homes. It's a committee that's on the peripheries of the Town Council. We do support it, and the cemetery warden is employed by the council, but we retrieve his costs through the work that we do there, and we also provide the administration for the burial board from these offices. So there are currently 7 members of the council on this committee.
The committee itself is an unusual authority. It still exists. It seems to have been missed out of the local government reforms of 1974, and is actually a combined authority with Sharpham. And so one member of the committee, making number 8, is actually a person from Sharpham who's elected by the community there. I believe they're unparished. But councillors, if you would like to be involved in looking after the cemetery, please raise your hand. So, Councillor Lokobandu, Councillor Milbourne? Osborne, sorry, I do apologise. I'll get used to it in a moment. Councillor Cook, Councillor Manning, Councillor White, Councillor Price, did you have your hand up? No. The Deputy Mayor and the Mayor. Do we have enough?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yes, spot on.
Thank you. So, We now move to the citizens' advice. 3 councillors sit on that outside body. Would anybody wish to do that? Sorry.
How often does that committee meet?
The committee meets as and when. I think the most important thing of this committee, it's hardly a committee, it's the people who represent the council in discussions with the citizens' advice. Importantly, we as a council have traditionally given quite a lot of money towards the citizens' advice, last year in the region of £7,000. And a part of the role is to ensure that funding that we donate has been appropriately spent. Because if the recent past, citizen advice has not had representation in Glastonbury, and we've worked hard to try and make sure that we are represented. So there's not a meeting as such, it's a representation.
So, councillors, you would like to? So we have Councillor Osborne, Price, and the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. We now move to the Somerset Association of Local Councils and the National Association of Local Councils. Sorry, get used to this thing. The Somerset Association of Local Councils is our representatives in a lobbying body and supporting body of councillors in Somerset, and the National Association is their body nationally. They are well involved in all things to do with councils and the government. A very interesting group to be part of, especially if you're interested in the legislation. They require 2 representatives from this council. Would anybody wish to do that? Councillor Smythe and myself. St Edmunds Hall are already the 4 councillors from the St Edmunds ward, the St Edmunds Community Hall. That is a condition within the trust deed of the hall. Glastonbury Community Development Trust requires 2 representatives.
I'd like to declare an interest on the director of the Glastonbury Community Development Trust.
Thank you.
Again, could you say a word or 2 about it and how often it meets?
I will defer to Councillor Manning.
Okay, Glastonbury Community Development Trust, I think was established about 15 years ago, and its main function in town is providing an op shop. So it's like a bit like a job centre. You may be aware that there isn't a job centre in Glastonbury anymore, but because of COVID, most of the work has actually been online. Other services include things like helping with preparing people for interviews, writing CVs, and the other.
Thank you for the clarity. Councillors, they require 2 councillors to sit as members of outside bodies. Anybody would like to do that?
Just a point of interest is that Councillor McDougall has something to do with this.
She's
not here. I'm not sure whether I should speak on her behalf, but could be that.
Is she already a representative to outside body for the group? So we'll see if there's no one has a burning desire to do this, then she would remain. I'm assuming. Does anyone else wish to do this? Councillor Henderson.
Just a question. I don't know, Paul. I mean, although you're a director, I'm sure you have to stop him being a council representative, surely.
Could, but Your Worship, the question just been raised. Is there anything to stop Councillor Manning being a representative on the council for the Community Development Trust, as well as being a director? There's nothing to prevent him from doing that. He could be double-hatted.
Then I think we have our 2. Thank you very much. The Mendip Health and Wellbeing Panel.
I can help you with this one, Your Worship, if I may. Infrequently meets. However, and of course it's in its last year, because the Mendip District Council will no longer be in existence in a year's time. However, the words health and well-being feature very highly in the work that we're trying to achieve in St Dunstan's House. So I do consider that the role will be a bridging, a linking role between the authority and what we're trying to deliver here. So I do believe it will be quite an important role as the year progresses.
So, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Oakton. Thank you. So we now move to Glastonbury Carnival Committee. Councillors, in fact, we have a member of the Carnival Committees here.
Your Worship, I'm quite willing to stay on that committee, I don't know if I can, because I'm no longer a councillor. I go to the committee meetings on a regular basis.
Well, thank you, Councillor Coles. I think that that will be between you now and Reg and Co. So, Reg, would you like to say a few words about the Carnival Committee for councillors?
Is there anybody else from the town? Don't put his name forward, but we'll sit on Carnival Committee. I'd like to see somebody take the role on do it. I'm quite happy to go and do it. If councillors
Well, thank you, councillors. I've just heard from the clerk that Terry Napper has expressed an interest in that, so I don't know whether councillors should be happy to defer to him. Okay, thank you, Reg. So the Harvest Show, 2 councillors required to support that. So we've got 3 wishing to go forward.
I'm happy to come out.
So Councillor Cook and the Deputy Mayor. And we move on to Strode College Theatre Board, requires 1 person. Councillor Henderson. Thank you. Mendip 1 team. Gerard, would you like to say something about this? I'm unsure whether they still meet.
Yeah, again, Your Worship, it's just another committee which is going to be time-bound because it's a part of Mendip District Council. The 1 team are a group which engages with the numerous departments of the local authority in being pulled together or drawn together in times of need or crisis. We've had calls to work with them when there was a spate of antisocial behaviour in the high street, and we called together the group. And so it's a time-bound group, but it gets kick-started as and when it's needed.
Okay, Councillor Henderson, I think that's yours. Thank you. So we now come to one that is related to the new unitary authority, which is the local community networks. I'm a bit vague as to how these function, Gerard. Are they requesting one councillor from each council?
Okay, Your Worship, if you recall, I mentioned this to you earlier the week, because this is very much the 3 words of the next council: local, community and networking. And there is a paper in your file about what else, not tabled, but in the file. But importantly, this is an opportunity with the demise of the middle tier of local government, with the district councils no longer being applicable after the end of next March. There's an opportunity for town and parish councils to communicate and work closer together. And that is hence the reason why I encouraged this to go on the agenda. If you recall, Street and Glastonbury councils have already started discussions on ideas that could be to the betterment of our populations. So I'll stop there. Thank you, Your Worship.
So this is very much like our representative on the town deal. This will be councillor who actually goes to this meeting on behalf of this council to present our position to the network, which are being formed, I hesitate to say instead of a district council, but are being formed because obviously a county council that's really big doesn't know what's going on in Glastonbury. So they're being formed. So I hear that Councillor Cottle would be prepared to stand on it. He's also a county councillor, so I think that might be prudent. Are councillors in agreement?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question about that?
Yes, of course.
It just sounds a very large job. So I'm surprised, maybe we'll need more than 1 person to be part of the networks as time goes forward.
I think that we'll probably have either it will become part of the regular full council meeting, a report back from the LCN, or we may even find ourselves having to form a LCN committee to make sure that we're fully heard on the county. So it may be that we have to do something like that, or there's an advisory committee or something like that, which would be an internal advisory committee, councillor only. Councillor Smythe.
I was just wondering along the same lines of Knockabandoo, Councillor Knockabandoo, that perhaps it'd be wise to have a deputy to Nick, because there may be clashes of meetings and.
Thank you. Would there anybody like to be a substitute if Nick isn't available? Councillor Anderson, do you wish to speak?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you very much. Just as the local community networks, we're really not sure how they're going to operate yet. I would imagine, as Nick looks like he's going to be our rep on the local community networks at county, presumably at some point he'll come back to us with some more information, and then we will, as you say, we may even form a local community networks committee, which then, I don't know, maybe meets with Street, or because we don't even know who's in our network yet. It could be Street and Glastonbury for sure, but it could be.
Well, remember, this is Somerset you're talking about.
So I think until we know what's involved, I mean, a deputy is probably a good idea, but until we know what's involved, I think we should.
So for the
powder dry.
Thank you, Councillor. For the benefit of new councillors, we have been holding informal meetings with Street under the assumption that we might be put together as part of an LCN, and those have been quite fruitful. And so that we may find that might be a way forward as well. But we'll wait and see how Nick reports back to us. Glastonbury Information Centre. This requires 2 councillors. Glastonbury Information Centre is run as an independent CIC from the council, although it was initially formed as part of the coordination of bringing together the Pilgrim Reception Centre, the Tourist Information Centre, or Glastonbury Tribunal Limited is the correct title, and the Town Council to provide a one-stop shop, a hub as it were, for local residents and visitors. As a CIC, it has directors, and the 2 appointed councillors become directors of that committee. I am currently a director of the CIC as a member of an outside body. And I, first of all, would like to ask whether councillors would be happy for me to continue in that role. I would like to suggest Councillor Oakton as a possible fellow councillor to be on that committee with me. I think her wealth of experience in this area will be a huge benefit to the CIC, and I don't know if you're happy to accept. So councillors, unless anybody has a burning desire to counter those 2 proposals, are we happy with that? Thank you. I will suffice. Thank you. Congratulations. So we now move to one of the more contentious outside bodies for us, CCTV. I say it's contentious because it never seems to be working whenever we need it to, but there we are. Would you say anything to this, Gerard?
Thank you, Your Worship. CCTV is currently administered by Mendip District Council, and there are the towns of Mendip co-join, and the monitoring of the CCTV takes place from Wells. Now we're entering into the world of a unitary. The remainder of the county is a wider network which operates out of Bridgewater. So this might well be a time-bound committee, is what I'm trying to describe. But if it is to be time-bound, it is important that the best of the Mendip CCTV is incorporated into the best of the county-wide one. And it's an opportunity to engage in that discussion, I'm sure.
So, councillors, anybody desire to be there? Councillor Manning?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you very much. Everybody happy with that? I will suffice. Thank you. Glastonbury Charities. This is the Glastonbury People's Trust, Gerard.
I think it is.
So Glastonbury Charities, actually, the member of the council that they request and is in their trust deed is the mayor. So I'm happy to fulfil that role again this year. Fair trade. 2 councillors required.
Happy with fair trade, Your Worship. The town of Glastonbury achieved fair trade status around about 6 or 7 years ago. And if you notice on the signage on each of the directions into town, it's written on the large boards that we are a fair trade town. But we are obliged to uphold that status by undertaking certain things throughout the year. And that includes like the promotion of fair trade at events like our harvest show, that type of thing. So not an onerous job, but an important job.
So we've got one person, the Deputy Mayor so far.
I know that Lindsay was doing the fair trade stall, and I wonder if she would be happy. Right, do you know?
I'm sure she can be asked.
As she's already, I think, on the Fair Trade Committee, could we assume that she's happy to continue unless otherwise? So we now have rights of way lead. Joe, do you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, I'm questioning this myself, to be honest with you, Worship, because I don't think it warrants having two councillors doing this. What its purpose is to ensure that the rights of way of the town are any problems are shared with the respective authority of the county, and in an attempt to try and keep them open. The late John Brunston was a great advocate for this and knew and walked every footpath. And I do believe in the past Councillor Smythe has done this, so he might be encouraged to continue.
Councillor Smythe, are you happy?
Very happy to continue in this role. I'm very happy to have someone walk alongside me as well, especially bearing in mind we've got the Glastonbury Way project, which needs to be monitored and kept open and clear of obstruction.
Yes. Councillor Mudge, you're happy to be the second. Thank you. Anyone else wish to contend? So we have the rights of way lead, Councillor Mudge, Councillor Smythe. Jared, would you be happy to speak to Highways lead?
Again, Your Worship, thank you very much. Highways, normally if there's a concern raised about highways, it would come to the clerk's office, and the clerk's office would pass the concerns on to the respective area within the Highways Authority. However, there are occasions when it is good to have an elected member's support in trying to get something happening at the Highways office, and therefore it would be a sound to have a representation. But it might be, may I suggest, Your Worship, it might be an idea that Councillor Cottle could be considered for this.
Thank you. Are there any councillors who may wish to do this if Councillor Cottle doesn't?
I can, if she
doesn't. Councillor White. So if we put Councillor White down there and check with Councillor Cottle. So next we have police liaison, and Jared, would you speak to this?
Actually, you volunteering to be. Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Police liaison has become quite an important role in the last 2 or 3 years. In that time, we have started to host in premises that we own in the car park the police post. And that has ensured a much greater presence of the police in Glastonbury and has worked very successfully. However, the dialogue doesn't stop with them here. We need to engage with them frequently. I can only share with you that the liaison is unlikely to be very onerous in the next 2 or 3 months because they are short-staffed, and taking officers off the beat to have a discussion is not encouraged, but certainly in the summer. But I am anticipating we'll be up to a full force by about September time, and I'm hoping that that group can then liaise. In the past, what we've done is met on Zoom, and that has proved quite successful because it doesn't tie everybody up for too long in one particular place. Thank you.
So are there any councillors who would like to be considered for this? So we've got 5.
Well, I've got a question, that's all.
Okay, yes, point of order, point of clarity.
Thank you, Worship. I was wondering whether this liaison would include encouraging the police to take preventative action, as on at the solstices, things such as road closures. So not only local police, but a wider liaison with Avon and Somerset.
Those type of conversations do happen at police liaison and between the clerk, myself, and sort of higher levels. So that is underway. Conversations happen. So, councillors, we've got 4 councillors. Could I show of hands again, please? Oh, sorry, quick question.
Your Worship, I just asked the town clerk, is this similar to what myself and Paul Lund were doing with the community? So that's fine.
Yeah. So clarity, Your Worship, if I may, Councillor Henderson's just asked if it's similar to a group that Councillor Lund in a previous council was part of with himself. It is, but I'll answer in part Councillor Smythe's statement or question. Is there are 2 specific activities happen in Glastonbury every year that the police are very much wanting closer liaison with the town council, and that is Beltane and the summer solstice. And these 4 councillors would, I suspect, be very close to the heart of the discussions with the police on those 2 and other events as and when they take place.
So I think it's, could I see the councillors' hands again? So there's Osborne, Cook, Manning and White. Thank you very much. Town Deal Board. Now, councillors, I am now on the Town Deal Board as a member of the community rather than in any other role. The board saw fit to ask me to join in that capacity, which reflects the wishes of Robert Richards. So, councillors, we do need a rep to represent us on the town board. It'll be very similar to what happens with the NOC. It will be taking the councils and the local community network, the council's desires to that. So you're not there as a personal representative, you're there to represent the council in that role. So would anybody wish to do that?
Worship, may I interject, if I may? Thank you. This is an incredibly important role because it's the time when we're bringing forward so many of the projects. 11 of the 12 projects are likely to be put before government before the end of the year. However, what I have organised is a session with the chair, Lynn Sedgemore, and the district council lead, Julie Reader-Sullivan, to meet all councillors on a date. It's about 2 weeks' time. I haven't got it right in front of me now. But also, tomorrow evening, is an opportunity for us to, on the agenda of the Property and Assets Committee, is to better understand the work of the Town Deal Fund on that particular project. So what I'm going to suggest, Your Worship, is that you don't fill that position this evening. You wait until we've had the presentation from Lynn Sedgemore, and those who are then perhaps wiser to what's being expected of them can then be taken forward then. But I'll also add that Councillor Manning is a board member because he represents the Glastonbury Chamber of Commerce. So you are represented through Paul at the moment.
Thank you. So, councillors, I wonder if it would be prudent at this point, whilst we're dealing with the Town Deal Board, to remind us that we have 2 projects currently that we are leading on as a council. And I would very much like to propose that we actually form a Town Deal Committee within the council to actually govern those 2 projects, something we don't have at the moment, and something I think would be able to help our representative understand what we're doing and inform their input into the Town Deal Board. I would like to propose that. I don't know if I have a second. Councillor Henderson. Anybody wish to speak against that motion? Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you. And could I have a show of hands of councillors who would like to sit on the Town Deal Committee?
Can you next one, please?
That's unanimous.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you. Thank you very much, councillors. I think that will help us no end. So, I believe that we have come to the end of the appointment to outside bodies.
Your Worship.
Councillor Lokabandu.
I'm just curious. I was thinking about Glastonbury today, and there are many other organisations within Glastonbury which maybe which haven't appeared on the list so far. So I'm just curious whether or not the list ends here or whether it's more open-ended. For instance, Avalon Community Energy, the Red Brick Building, the Conservation Society, the Antiquarian Society. The list of institutions in Glastonbury goes on and on.
So the way that it happens is that those bodies that we see before us on the list have requested themselves, councillors, to go on as either as executives or as committee members. I am conscious through your remark that there are a lot of newer organisations in the town who may not know the form and who maybe would welcome a councillor on their board or as part of their committee. So I wonder whether there would be an opportunity out of this meeting for the clerk's office to write to perhaps a number of organisations that would appear appropriate, and I'm sure councillors could add to that list if they wished, to see whether or not they would welcome a councillor. I'm just looking to the clerk to see if that feels an appropriate thing to do.
That feels very appropriate, Your Worship. As you recall, you have been invited to be part of the group of the Forget-Me-Nots meet. That's the sort of example that I think you're alluding to.
Thank you. It's just my age is catching up with me. But I wonder, sorry, Councillor Ronnie-Dougal, sorry, I do apologize.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to give an example. So the Friends of Rights Band have for many years invited a town councillor, district councillor and a county councillor to be on the committee. They don't attend the meetings necessarily, but they always receive the minutes. But that we invite. Is that the same as it coming here and people saying, yes, we'll do it? You see what I mean?
Well, I do see what you mean. I think that...
you know, because you've always invited me.
I've always been invited. I think that it may be prudent for us to gather, as councillors, we perhaps could send a list to Gerald O'Connor of the groups we feel it may be appropriate to approach. And perhaps we could do that over this coming week to enable them to approach the organisations, and then the organisations themselves would say whether or not they felt it was appropriate. As it's been mentioned, I have to declare that I'm a director of Avalon Community Energy. So thank you for your question, Lokabandu, and we now move on to approve the calendar of meetings which you have before you. Councillors, if you take a moment to review these dates, and I will suffice. Councillor Ronnie-Dougal.
I'm just wondering, is the prospect to be confirmed November the 26th? Is there a reason why there's it to be confirmed? Because it looks as though it's the right sort of date for when we normally have it.
It's totally the right sort of date. I imagine this is something to do with road closures?
It was because when I wrote the list, Your Worship, we were still in the COVID pandemic, and I didn't know it was going to be allowed to happen.
Thank you. So that is exact. I think that is the right. Yeah.
Yes.
So, councillors, I take that as accepted. Councillor Smythe.
It's just a point of clarity. There was some corrections made from this list at the previous meeting.
They are included. They are included.
Thank you, councillors. And other committees, you will receive your papers at least 5 working days before the meeting. So now we do. Gerald, do we need to do this in order, or did I suffice?
On 10,
yeah,
I would suffice.
Okay, thank you. So we now move to appoint signatories to the bank accounts. We hold a bank account with HS.
Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. We hold a bank account with HSBC, current deposit accounts. 2 signatures required. It's currently Councillor Coles, former Councillor Coles, myself, the responsible finance officer, and the town clerk. I'm very happy to continue as a signatory, as I am aware of how complicated it can be sometimes to get the signatories changed. Would anybody else wish to be a signatory to that bank, those bank accounts, the HSBC bank accounts.
May I make a question now?
Yes?
Yes, so I'm aware that Councillor Coles has now retired, so is it appropriate for him to still be a signatory? And I'm aware that the town clerk is about to retire and promised to take his place. So should there be a changeover of signatory there? So
Quite right. Quite right. Well, in answer to your first question, that's why Councillor Coles is exactly why I'm asking if another councillor would like to come forward, because obviously Councillor Coles has stood down from the council. And I'm assuming, Gerard, that it will naturally revolve to Connor once you've retired.
Correct, Your Worship, yes.
So I think it's the role rather than the person in that respect. But we do need another councillor to be a signatory. Councillor Watt, are you happy to do that?
I'm in town most days, so.
Thank you. I think that's possibly the most important factor. And the nationwide building society, 3 signatures are required. And again, Councillor Coles is one of those, so another councillor would be required. I am happy to stay on as a signatory on that. And I'm delighted to say that was the first organisational bank account, our building society account, opened at the Nationwide when they opened in 2016. So there we are. Would anybody wish to be the signatory on the Nationwide? Yes, you can. Thank you, Councillor. So now we receive and consider the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 12th of April. May I borrow your full set? So the form here, councillors, councillors who were present at that meeting, I'm going to read through page numbers. If you spot anything that is not recorded correctly, please raise your hand and reference the item. If you spot anything that has anything omitted, please do likewise. And if you see any blundering grammatical errors that would be better to not remain forever into the record of the council, please amend those too. Page 62. Page 63. Page 64. Page 65. And page 66. Councillors who are present, do I have your agreement to sign these as a true record of the meeting of the council on the 12th of April? I will suffice, thank you. While I sign these, I wonder whether the clerk would be happy to speak to item 229, actions arising from the meeting. Do you have a copy there?
You've got my copy, but you sign that page and pass it back.
I'll
please.
sign it, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. A number of actions that were identified at that meeting I can share with you. To resolve the watering requirement of Fisher's Hill, we have identified a method of resolving that opportunity, but at the moment our vehicle with the watering container, both of the pump and the containers, is still being repaired, and we're anticipating it'll be back in though by about Monday of next week, so we can do alternate week watering of Fisher's Hill as agreed from then. I know that Councillor Lation, in one of the last things she did for us was to support us in trying to get pavement sorted outside the co-op, and I know the highways team are supporting her with that. I know that our responsible financial officer did make contact with Zurich Insurance to identify if any of their investments were in fossil fuels, and I'm afraid I don't have the answer to that. It will have to come directly from the RFO. I have pursued the asset transfer of St Dunstan's car park, but I have nothing to report other than the fact that I have chased it. I did write to the two county councillors and thank them for their support in the years gone past. And the poster which was recently used at the Tour Leisure consultation event was circulated to all councillors. And finally, if you recall, there was a question mark as to why in the police newsletter Glastonbury hadn't been identified and mentioned. I did speak to the police about that, and it was quite simply they ran out of typo space on the leaflet. So that has been rectified in the current one. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Gerard. We now move to item 13 to receive the resolutions from the following meetings. These are tabled, and councillors, we need to receive these with a point, I suppose, of approving them as the full council in some respects, but it's certainly that we should read through these and understand them, because these are the actions taken by the various committees on our behalf. Planning, for instance, is a devolved power. They make the recommendation, and that recommendation goes to Mendip. We're a statutory consultee, which means Mendip can ignore us if they wish. So please do read through those. What we ask at Planning Committee is the clerk of the Planning Committee, Sarah, actually has a sheet for us to show when Mendip have agreed or disagreed with our recommendation. Councillor Ronaldo.
Yes, Planning Emergency Advisory Committee, we did actually agree a date, and Connor was going to put it in the diary, and I phoned through and checked that it was going to be in the diary for Thursday the 26th of May, and Scarlett said that she was putting it in the diary where she was, but she needed to double check with Jackie that it was in the top diary, and I'm just wondering, Connor, did you actually ask Jackie to put it in the diary?
Thank you, Serena. It was in the diary. However, since then, a town deal meeting for all councillors has been organised for that time. So I have passed that on to Melissa, who is going to get in touch with the advisory group to organise a new date for the first meeting of the new council.
Okay, because I have actually informed all the previous people that we had agreed Thursday the 26th, so we're now going to have to change it.
Yes, I'm sorry.
You mean to come and speak with Jackie, or will Melissa be in touch with me?
I've asked Melissa to be in touch with you, and I'm sorry I only noticed that today when I was looking for that very meeting in my diary and noticed that the town deal meeting had taken over that.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Connor. I would like to draw your attention to Queen's Platinum Jubilee meeting. This Thursday on the 19th, we are celebrating St Dunstan's Day in the Town Hall with a screening of A Queen is Crowned at 1 o'clock, a free screening in the Town Hall. And that, of course, is the tremendous film made of the coronation itself, which is following St Dunstan's coronation service, and is narrated by Sir Laurence Olivier. If you haven't seen it, it really is spectacular. Councillors, do come along if you're free at 1 o'clock. And then in the evening, we have a talk by Paul Weston on St Dunstan and the Glastonbury Jubilee Dynamic, and that is in the Town Hall at 7 o'clock, which is following on from a talk that's also being held in the Abbey, I believe, in the morning. They're having themselves a talk about St Dunstan in the Abbey that day. So St Dunstan is certainly being remembered that day. Thank you, Councillor.
I just wanted to remark that I've seen some advertising of this event in which St Dunstan is described as a druid.
Yeah.
Now, that is not the usual accepted
no, you're quite right.
understanding of him. Most people would think the druids
went from written record 300 years before he was born. So I think it should be at least qualified with whatever scholarly article you're basing that assertion on should be referenced, because that's not the usual understanding.
Well, Councillor, you'll be pleased to hear that we've removed all reference to Druidry from any of the promotion related to that. Facebook, I'm afraid some of that might be historic, but it's no longer says Druid in the promotion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I also want to say that the tour beacon lighting has been brought forward to 9:30. This is because we have 2 crews from the BBC coming to film it, and we also have an independent film company coming to film it. So inspired by what we've been doing this year and the support of Ted Allen DL, which has been extremely useful for us. So that's going to be quite an occasion. They're filming it at 9:30 so that it can be screened at 9:45, as if we were doing it at 9:45. But obviously they need to make sure that nobody's jumping up and down doing the wrong sort of thing. So, and those people can be edited out. And councillors, there is a community procession on the 3rd of June, which is recreating the procession of Alice Buckton's 100 years ago. She had the procession through the town. It's recreating that. It is expected that a civic party representing the town council will be there. Councillors, I would hope that you can, it's a bank holiday, join the procession as councillors. The Edward Bateman Coward DL is coming to represent Her Majesty to walk with us, and it will be a full occasion with mace and robes, etc. So we will be meeting in the town hall around about, the procession starts at 2 p.m. I would suggest about 12:45 councillors may wish to come to the council chamber, where we will gather and assemble. We will meet and greet the Queen's representative. Councillors will be able to then walk together up to the High Street, to the top of the High Street, where the procession will begin. That, I think, is going to be quite something. Then again, councillors, on the 5th of June is the official St John's Church service in honour of Her Majesty's most prestigious Jubilee. And councillors again would be expected to attend that. We will meet here. What time would we gather here, Gerard?
I don't know the detail, Your Worship. Connor might have it.
10:30?
I'm afraid I don't have that detail, Your Worship. I will ask Scarlett and I will send that.
So I'm saying, councillors, the church service is at 11. We will convene here. It will be processing from the town hall, again with mace and robes, etc., to the church. So I would hope that you could be here in the council chamber at 10:30. That will be followed, the church service will be followed by a Jubilee Big Lunch, which will be a street party, which you're all invited to. Please bring your own sarnies, it says here. So, the Neighbourhood Planning Advisory Committee. Connor, we didn't actually ask councillors if they wish to be on this committee. Did we? Is that in our list of?
No, there's an oversight, I'm afraid, Your Worship.
So, councillors, whilst we're looking at these resolutions, may I have a show of hands of all those councillors who wish to be taking part in the very final stages of putting together the neighbourhood plan?
You announce them, please, Your Worship.
So that is Councillor Cook, Councillor Manning, Councillor Ronnie Dougal, Councillor White, Councillor Smythe, Councillor Much, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councillor Lokabandu.
Thank you.
Thank you. We note that the next meeting is on the 7th of June. And we've discussed the climate emergency. So, councillors, we now move on to assets of community value. Councillors, I have asked us to consider putting Abbey Moor Stadium as an asset of community value, so that the land that is currently used as a football pitch will be able to be registered in a list that will be held by the district council currently, so that if it is ever put up for sale, community groups or other groups related to it, such as the football club, would have to be offered the property first, rather than any buyer without a community interest. So this has come out of the Localism Act 2011, asset of community value. We as a council can put forward an asset to be considered by Mendip District Council to be on that list. And I've done this because I feel that the football club and any other user of the stadium should be given the opportunity before an outside developer takes it over if it is ever put up for sale. I'm very happy for councillors to ask questions around this, or happy to move to a vote. I don't know if anyone wishes to speak against it.
Just ask a question.
Yes.
That's in your motion. I mean, the ground we're talking about is guaranteed to be open space, isn't it? It can't be built on.
It can be built on.
It could be covered in houses, for example.
It could be covered in houses if the football pitch is sold, a new football pitch is found, and a developer comes in. I believe that's right, is it? Councillor Henderson.
Councillor Manning might put me right here, but we've chatted with the staff down at the football club several times. The problem, it seems to me, is that the owner is not somebody who works well with the football club. He's threatened them several times that he's going to get planning permission to build on the pitch. My personal opinion is that he would never get planning permission down there, but he can never say never. So it is a potential threat, although a very small threat in my opinion.
Councillor, I would ask you to be cautious of prejudicing yourself.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anyway, I think this is a good step forward in maybe ensuring that should it ever rear its ugly head, could be forestalled.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
Very little to add, Your Worship. Just to say that the land is actually outside the development area at the moment. So, as Councillor Henderson says, the likelihood of it becoming houses is slim. Likelihood is slim, but the landowner has said that that's what he would like to do.
So, councillors, we do not have a 5-year supply of housing in Mendip at the moment, which means that our boundaries are in a dire state of being not part of the conditions of material consideration of the district council when it considers any application. So I would be very happy, councillors, if no one wishes to speak against this, to move to a vote that we apply to Mendip District Council to have Abbey Moor Stadium as an asset of community value on their assets of community value list, and for the District Council to consider that.
One quick question, Your Worship. Have the manager and the chief executive of the football club been informed of the council's proposition, or are we? I mean, would it be polite to let them know what we intend to do?
We as a successor parish have the capacity to do this. Mendip then will inform anyone who needs to be informed of the intent, and it's at that point where the consideration is made. Us putting it forward for consideration is not a done deal. Okay. It then has to be considered by the Assets of Community Value Committee at Mendip, and a due process under law will then take place. Councillor, do you feel that we should delay this?
Absolutely not. No, I think it's a good move.
Thank you. So can I have a show of hands? Oh, Councillor Cook.
Yeah, some years ago, talking to the football club, and when there was a considerable amount of noise issues from the football club affecting the caravan park opposite. That caravan park at that time has said that they would be very interested in purchasing the site. So to exclude that might be not a good idea. That possibility, because if it was the caravan park, the big buy, you know the one I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean it's a very hard padlock. Yeah. And it's a very kind of caravan park, and to extend that, you can only bring more to it, I would have thought. That's just, I'm just saying, you don't have to just close all the doors.
Councillor Henderson, right to reply?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that, and again, Councillor Martin, you're right on this. I think there would be some suggestion if anybody took that over, football club over, and used it for something other than a football facility, they would have to provide some other land equivalent. So they would have to find some other place for the football club to go. I think something like that.
Yes, that's actually in the conditions of the football club. They would have, whoever was developing the site would have to buy another place for the football club to go to. That could be. Councillor Manning, right to reply?
Thanks. Yes, that is quite right. Although a similar site is not something that is readily available. Certainly sites that is a challenge. But I know it's hearsay, but the football club have said to me on a number of occasions that the current owners of the caravan site would like the football club to remain there because the actual football club provide a number of services that are benefit to the guests, if that's the right word, at the caravan park.
Thank you. So it doesn't mean that the Abbey Moor Stadium would be sold at a cheaper amount than the market value. It just gives the current users of the site the opportunity to have the first refusal of purchasing it as a community asset. So, councillors, if there are any other points, please raise your hand. If not, I would move to vote. All those in favour? It's unanimous, Chair. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Would you be happy to process this with? Thank you. So we now have a planning application to consider. As planning committee hasn't met yet, there is no chair of planning, so I'm happy to take this on. It is looks like to remove a leaning stem and to fell an ash, etc. It's a place whose name I don't know how to say. Would you?
I would guess it's Sambogaya.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So this is Mr. Elliott Tree Work. We have, through the power of technology, the application. So, Connor, would you wish to speak to this?
I'm afraid, Your Worship, this is the first time I've actually seen this presentation. I was only asked to make sure it was up on the screen, so I don't have any.
I will, Your Worship.
Thank you.
That would like to.
We'll defer to our clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The planning application that we've been asked to comment on as a council is to fell the ash trees T1, T2, T3 and T4, which are identified on the location plan, which is the only document that we've had. It's as simple as that, I'm afraid. It's a bit basic for our normal presentation to ourselves. But that's important. It's a felling of the ash. What I don't know is if those trees are subject to the ash dieback and whether they have to come down. That hasn't been shared in the information I've received. And then there's a bay tree, T5, which is, let's see it quickly, top right, closest to the property, I believe. And there is, on that bay tree, to remove a single leaning stem, which I can only appreciate is probably towards the property. And T6 is a yew tree, and there's a recommendation, they want to remove the lower limbs by 1.5 metre, and the same with T7, that's also a yew tree, and they want to prune that by 2 metres. So the important thing of this is pruning of 2 yew trees, it's the removal of 4 ash trees, and it's the removal of 1 leaning stem on a bay tree, but they are all in a conservation area, hence the reason this application is before you.
Councillors, any comments, observations or recommendations? Councillor Smythe?
Your Worship, I'm kind of familiar with this garden. I'm not sure, as the clerk rightly says, whether these yew trees are infected. Therefore, I recommend that we refer it to the tree officer for his opinion. The ash.
Thank you. That's a recommendation. Would anybody wish to second the recommendation?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think Councillor Much was the first. So that would then be for the tree officer to make a decision on behalf of us as a statutory consultee. Councillor Much?
Just to ask, Worship, people that put in these applications, they don't always give the reason for why they want to fell trees. And in the case of the ash, they could expedite things maybe if they were told in advance that, give us a reason. Otherwise, we're just guessing, really. I mean, it sounds like maybe it's ash dieback, maybe it's not.
Thank you. I think that the information that you're interested in may be contained, of course, in the planning portal at Mendip, and it may be useful for any other applications coming to full council for the clerk's office to actually plunder the resources of the Mendip planning portal and bring information to us here as to why this might be the case. But I believe that we have a recommendation to ask this to go to the tree officer, as been seconded. Paul?
I was just going to ask a quick question, Your Worship. That is that because it is in a conservation area, is there any obligations on basic trees?
That is a very good question, and one that I would hope the clerk's office may be able to reply to us at our future meeting. Could that be an action, please, Gerard?
Your Worship, it might be something you'd want to recommend in our reply to this application.
That may be very, very truthful. What is, of course, in mind is that this would be part of the neighbourhood plan. Of course, there is the active tree group there who would like to see that sort of thing as a planning condition. So, Councillor Smythe, are you happy to add the recommendation of the clerk to your recommendation? That we say that any trees felled are replaced? Is that correct?
That's what I suggested, Your Worship, yes. They could be with smaller trees, of course.
Councillor Henderson, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to say that it's fairly unusual for a planning application to come to full council. It's only when we're time constrained that it hasn't got time to go to the planning committee. I would sort of stress to anybody that's going to be on the planning committee that a site visit is almost imperative. And you had the time to visit this garden. I mean, I don't know what the garden looks like. I don't know how old these trees are, or what the size of it is in comparison to the property. It may be that planting more trees there might not be appropriate. So I mean, we can suggest it by all means, but I mean, without actually seeing the site, it would be very difficult to say it has to be done. And I think that's why the officer is probably the best idea.
Okay.
I would agree entirely with that.
Right to reply, Councillor Manning.
I was just going to add that my understanding is that this premises...
Councillor, if you don't mind standing.
Sorry.
No, you're a councillor.
That my understanding is that this is the former Shekin Ashram.
Yes, of course, I can see where it is now, yeah, of course.
Thank you. So, Councillor, we'll move forward with the recommendation to refer to the tree officer. It's been seconded. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. I would be amazed if there is an item 16.
No, I've not received anything, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillors have just been elected. I'm sure that they're still going through their induction. So I think it was rather hopeful that we might receive something from them at this meeting. District Councillor reports. So Councillor Cottle and Councillor McDougall are not here. Councillor Henderson, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report, Your Worship.
Thank you. I also have nothing to report at this meeting. I think the elections took over the entire concentration of Mendip at this time. So, councillors, we need to now receive and consider the schedule of payments. This has been tabled. Councillors, we have a duty to make sure that any money spent by this council is at least in our understanding of what's happened. So the responsible finance officer and clerk's office prepare this schedule of payments. These are payments that have gone out, and you're quite welcome to question any amount or any of the items on the list. Councillor Smythe.
Could I be reminded of the item, the roofing works, or town hall roof 1475? Could I be reminded of what that entailed?
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Gerard to speak to this.
Thank you, Your Worship. There was leaks in the ceiling of the main hall, and exploratory work around about last October time identified that the battens which hold the tiles had become rotten, particularly on the north side, and that some tiles had slipped down the roof, allowing water ingress. That's why we had to quite hurriedly put together and sort 3 quotes, and that was all approved by the planning committee. But linked to that, of course, is access, and that's why there's a scaffolding with Abbey scaffolding there, £2,400, I believe it is.
Councillor Henderson.
The clerk will correct me, but didn't we insulate the roof at the same time?
We did. The roof is already insulated, but we sorted out the insulation up in there to make it more level and even.
Thank you very much. I would like to draw Councillor Manning's attention to 1495, as I believe he needs to declare an interest.
I do, but this is, well, I thought this was in the past. Apologies.
Yeah. No worries. It's just, if in doubt, say I have an interest. You never know when Les is lurking. So, councillors, do I have your agreement to sign off the schedule of payments? I will suffice. Thank you. While I do so, we now need to move to appointment of an internal and external auditor for the coming year. May I ask Gerard?
Thank you, Your Worship. It is a statutory requirement that our accounts are audited, and it is a general practice that an internal audit takes place, and that is traditionally conducted by, over the years I've been in Glastonbury Town Council, by a business called Pro Business based in Wells, and they do a very thorough job for us, and I would recommend that Pro Business be appointed again to undertake the internal audit. The external audit is a slightly different matter because we don't appoint them. External audit is appointed by government, and all towns and parishes, almost without exception, have PK Littlejohn as the external auditor. We have no control over that one, but I would propose to you, through you, Your Worship, that we accept Pro Business as being the internal auditor for this council.
Thank you, Gerard. Would anybody wish to speak against that recommendation? Gerard, would I suffice, or do we need to take a formal?
I will suffice.
I will suffice, councillors.
Right.
Thank you. So we now move to the review of, and very important, the first one, general power of competence. Councillors recall that this is under the Localism Act 2011, gives us the opportunity to do anything that a living person may do, so long as it is within the law. Gerard, would you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. And it's most important that this is recognised annually, that we do have a qualified town clerk, and therefore we do fit the requirements of the general power of competence. I'll give you an example within this council as to the things that we do, whilst it requires this work, is we do charge for car parking in St Dunstan's car park. So effectively, we are gaining an income in addition to the precept. Also, that we as a town council own the Glastonbury Information Centre, and whilst it's a separate body that manages that we are party in encouraging the commercial activities that take place from within. And those are examples of where the power of competence needs to be demonstrated, and that's done annually at this meeting. And I can assure you, Your Worship, that your town clerk is qualified.
Thank you. The Code of Conduct for Councillors.
Your Worship, what I suggest might want to do with all of these, all of these papers, policies were in the pack that was distributed last week, and I sincerely hope that those, all of you have read them, and hope that any questions or queries that might want to be raised could be done so at this meeting now. It's a lot to take in. I fully understand that, but there is also a requirement for us and you, prior to you starting to become councillors, to understand the policies that we have.
So, councillors, any points of order or points of clarity that you wish to make in relation to item 20? Councillor Henderson.
Presumably, if any councillor has any queries at any time, they can be brought up. It doesn't have to be at this meeting. So anybody who finds anything in there that's difficult or whatever can bring it up.
I'm sure the clerk's office will be very happy to respond to any questions that you may have at any point. So, councillors, good luck with the reading.
Your Worship, if I may come back, the member of the public earlier that spoke about the communication of the town, you may want just to review the social media policy so that you become more accustomed to what it is that we are trying to achieve by working with our social media.
I would be very happy if this council, the Facebook pages that were mentioned, the ward pages, were set up in the 2011 by councillors who wished for the council to have a presence on social media. It was done almost semi-unofficially with good intent, but they are not actually under the auspices of the town council. And I think that in line with our general communications ideology, we shouldn't have anything that's public facing which could appear to be part of the council which isn't. And I would wonder whether we could formally ask for those to be removed from Facebook. And if we desire to have a two-way street with the community as a council, then that is something that we do through the clerk's office. And we have a Facebook page now, and it may be that the clerk's office may wish to set up new formal official pages for each ward if they feel that that's appropriate. I don't know whether or not councillors would be happy to speak to this now. Councillor Ronnie Dougal.
Yes, when you came up in the public participation and we had a break while you went out to do roads and all, I actually spoke to this about this with Connor, and he said he'd be quite happy to have a look at all the Facebook stuff because he's quite technically literate.
Councillor Smythe.
I think the recommendation that you suggest is very wise, and I'd like to propose the motion that we do so, to remove the said Facebook.
Thank you. Anybody wish to second that? Councillor Henderson. Anybody wish to speak against that? I move to vote. All those in favour? All those against? One against. And
thank you.
Any abstentions? And one abstention. Okay, so I think for the benefit of the clerk, we might wish to just show all those in favour.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Thank you. All those against? And all abstaining. So,
thank you.
Councillor Cook, you didn't vote this time? Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor.
Could I just add, if we're going to have council control Facebook new accounts, could we actually, for the sake of inclusion, have TikTok and IG as well? Because nobody sort of under 40 uses Facebook.
Quite a good, and if you're happy to propose that, I'd be happy to second that, Councillor. So although anyone, oh, sorry. Councillor, would you mind standing?
Yes, that's IG, sorry.
Was that IG?
Yes.
Thank you. So councillors, all those in favour? It appears to be unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking at you, Connor. Are you happy to undertake this for us?
Yes, well, I will just confirm, Your Worship, we do already actually have an Instagram account. We do not have a TikTok account. I can look into it, but the form of content that goes on TikTok might not be something that's easily manageable, and our content might not be that interesting to the audience. But we do already have an Instagram account.
Thank you. Councillor White.
One suggestion, so sort of slightly outside of social media. How about having a ward page on the town council website?
I think that is a very useful idea. May I suggest that we have at our next meeting an item called reviewing our social media and communications, and that perhaps, Connor, you would be able to supply us with a briefing about what we currently do and any recommendations from the clerk's office of how we could improve that, considering our code of conduct and our need to be GDPR compliant, and the fact that we are a corporate body rather than just individual.
Absolutely, I will do, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. So, Jared, have we done everything you need us to do on item 20?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm just questioning, you may know the answer to this, Your Worship. What will happen with the wards after the cessation of the district council? Will there still be 4 wards?
So my understanding is that they're successor parish wards, and the successor parishes remain in law. I don't believe the Secretary of State has removed those things. So I would imagine, unless they revert to lower output levels, I can't see anything changing. Have you heard anything different?
No, why I raised it, because of course we have now 2 county councillors who represent Glastonbury. They're not representing individual wards, they're representing the whole of the town.
That was for us?
As at the moment, there's 4 district councillors, and that's what I was questioning.
So the district councillors are elected on successive parish wards. That's how the 1973 Local Government Act worked. So I believe that the wards will remain. We will find out, no doubt.
Sorry, thank you.
Presumably the wards were there before the district council. When there was a borough, presumably there were still the 4 wards.
Yeah,
I'm assuming so. We may be able to ask people at our next meeting, subject to the later stages of this council meeting tonight. So, communications and announcements. Joe, do we have anything?
I have one communication which I've held on to, Your Worship, because it's the Taunton Minister, Reverend Toby Osmond, and the Mayor of Taunton, Councillor Sue Lees, are warmly inviting you to join them for a family service of Thanksgiving on Sunday the 5th of June, which of course is going to clash with the activities of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. But now that I know who the Mayor is, that's the invitation to you, Your Worship.
Thank you. As tempting as Taunton is, I think I will be in Glastonbury.
I will reply to that effect, shall I? You'll say you're unable to attend.
Are you able to attend that, or would you rather be here? Okay. Yes, I think. Thank you. If you could explain that we're otherwise engaged.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other announcements from councillors? I would just like to formally say congratulations to all of you for getting on the council. I think that we have a wealth of experience and knowledge on the council. It was great during our informal meeting hearing about all the things that councillors have done. And I think that we will be able to work very well together for the whole of the town. So that's my announcement. Congratulations, councillors. Anything other to announce from any councillors? So we move on to correspondence. Do we have correspondence, Jared?
Yes, Your Worship, there's 2 items of correspondence. One, I'll draw your attention in the file that was distributed last week, the training opportunities that are with SOC, and I would encourage councillors to give consideration to the training courses. Please, if there's something you wish to attend, through the clerk's office, let us know and we'll register you on those individual courses. The cost is £25 per person per course, of which is non-refundable once you've committed. That's it. But it's of course the town council paying that, not yourselves. But I cannot stress enough, Your Worship, the importance of undertaking some training for those who are very new to the world of local authority. And the second is to share with you is some email correspondence that we've received in the clerk's office from a lady called Karen Churchill, and she's drawing our attention. She's asked me to share this with all councillors. She's drawing our attention to the concerns about new equipment being installed in St John's Church without prior notification to residents. And it's quite a long email, but the summary of it is the concerns that radiation and the installation of equipment which might be 5G related is of concern. I'll happily distribute that email to all of you if you so wish.
Thank you. I think it would be useful for councillors to receive. Thank you. No other correspondence. We move to summary of actions. Gerard.
Your Worship, I don't have any from this evening. I mean, that's very, very rare, apart from updating a few things on the register of actions and activities, but I don't have any actually specific items to identify as actions from this evening's meeting, unless I've missed something.
Councillors, has the clerk missed anything?
Can I make one suggestion, Your Worship? In the interest of the comfort of the Deputy Mayor, could a box be provided to put a sheet on height of these seats? I'm vicariously uncomfortable on your behalf.
Thank you. It only is a testament to the Porch family of how long-legged they were, but there we go. The Deputy Mayor may be pleased to know that it's very rare that we use the formal thrones in any business of the council, apart from perhaps today. I can't think of any other time. No. Thank you. So we now will pause. Oh, councillor.
Were we not asking for social media?
Absolutely, there is.
Yes,
Thank you. Well done. Connor, do you have any actions?
I've written down quite a few, but the main action was to provide a briefing and to review the social media policy and receive feedback from councillors. To write to bodies, as suggested by councillors who may wish to receive a
very good
councillor representative.
Yes.
To circulate the time, although you did mention 10:30, Your Worship, to circulate the time for councillors to assemble here in the chamber ahead of the service on the 5th of June. To investigate whether there is a requirement to replace trees in the conservation area that are felled.
Thank you.
To look at, well, that's part of the social media policy, but I made a note following the public participation. And to circulate any meeting dates to councillors of any committees that aren't on the annual list of meetings so far.
Thank you very much. So the public part of the meeting is now closed. I would ask members of the public and for the live streaming to end. Members of the public